Hello everyone, Callus here, the man, the myth, the legend behind the Callus Narrates YouTube channel, link in the description by the way. I suppose if you'd consider subscribing to me, I'd appreciate that, but you should also, while you're here, consider subscribing to the Advanced Revival channel, giving a thumbs up, all that good stuff. We've got ourselves a banger today. We've got round 3 action from the Jimvitational. Not only two really good players, but in this case, just by dumb coincidence, two countrymen, two Spaniards. So I think that really adds another layer to the dynamic here, because these guys definitely know each other. Not only have they played on however many World Cups together, probably many, but I also recall, don't know exactly what year it was, but I'm certain that they were SPL teammates on Congregation of the Classiest maybe 2 to 3 years ago. There's no doubt in my mind that these guys are very familiar, and they're even busting out the same avatar camaraderie here. So probably not a pairing that either one is thrilled about, but really two tremendous players. SOULWInd, one of the overall best Pokemon players, not Gen 3, Pokemon players of all time. Really one of the guys on the short list of the best ever. And he was also the runner-up in Callus Invitational 6, so very capable in this format as well. And then Garay is, also not an ADV main, but super duper capable, versatile, someone that I vouched for and invited directly to the main event of Callus Invitational 7 last year. A lot of people thought he was a play-ins player, shouldn't be there. I feel that his performance spoke for itself, and he very much showed that he belongs. Definitely someone capable of defeating SOULWInd. All that said, let's get into it. Like I said, probably these guys not thrilled to play against each other, but pairings are random. You get stuff like this sometimes. Here we go, game 1. SOULWInd on the bottom, Garay on the top. Celebi lead is unusual. Typically, that usually means that it has baton pass, perhaps sub pass. It could be like super duper offensive, but Celebi lead is usually trying to pass a substitute or something to that effect. Suicune in the back. Not much information revealed right now. It could be some CM spam for SOULWInd. That's not generally his MO. He generally leans towards stall your teams, as does Garay, but like I said, the fact that these guys know each other so well, maybe that messes with it a little bit and they bring something specifically with the other guy in mind. Doesn't look like Garay's deviated too much from the usual. Looks like just TSS. And SOULWInd has some kind of offense here with Magneton. The fact that it actually went for Thief there, the Skarmory, is pretty relevant, as opposed to going opening turn Spikes, which it almost always does. He goes for Thief, which is fine in most situations, but with the way that this played out, he didn't get a second turn, so he didn't even get one layer of Spikes down. And that very well may end up costing him. We've got double Trapper actually for SOULWInd, so he's just got himself a flat-out 5-4 advantage after both the Skarm and the Cheetar were trapped and killed. And Garay's team, I think, is pretty passive. Probably just Doll, Dugtrio, or something to that effect in the back. And if that is indeed the case, and there is one of the things that I think would be there, the Doll, he's going to have a really, really hard time winning without a Spike. Maybe if it's CM Bliss, but even then you've got a Leech Seed B and a Dugtrio on the other side. There also may be an Explosion coming here, though that might be a little fast and loose since that 100% kind of a waste of the resource to blow the Doll right there. Dolls usually can't do much to each other. They very infrequently carry Toxic. Set that I'm fond of personally. I like Shadow Ball over Psychic since it hits a lot of the same stuff, but it lets you run minus special attack nature, keeps some of that speed, which can be relevant in a lot of matchups, but it doesn't feel like either of them, in this case, has Shadow Ball or Toxic, so they're kind of staring each other down with their bazillion eyes and not doing much. So the last poke for Garay is not the Dugtrio that I thought it might be. It's actually a Jirachi, so maybe that's the win condition, maybe that or the Blissey, or I guess both, but probably just one or the other. Maybe one of them is CM, maybe even CM sub for the Rachi. But right now we have the far more riveting matchup on Doll, and I'm glad that SOULWIND saves us from that monotony by just exploding there. Ends up just being a trade, so SOULWIND is still ahead 4-3 at the moment, and he's got an unrevealed in the back, which, based on the rest of the team, I would assume is a Snorlax, but TBD. But it is CM Bliss, and they're going to go back and forth here in a Calm Mind pissing contest. It's hard to switch once the CM boosts get rolling, since obviously it's very difficult to switch a totally unboosted Pokemon into something that has however many stacks of CM going behind it. And they both have quite a bit. That's 4 Calm Minds for Kuhn, 3 for Bliss, and probably they're going to go the whole way. So this comes down to, if the Suicune has Roar, then Gary is super boned. Otherwise, Blissey with the advantage here. A Freeze or a Crit or a Thunderbolt Para, all would be devastating for Kuhn here. But if Suicune is Rest Talk, then maybe that makes it a little bit easier. But there you go. Both of them at max Calm Minds. So let's see how it plays out. Both fishing for crits. And neither one finds it immediately, but you see the massive damage difference there. Just 14% from Surf versus 35% from Thunderbolt. And Gary gets crit on the second possible opportunity with a good damage roll and kills the Bliss. That sucks, because I think the CM Bliss there had a very real shot. Now, depending on what health it was at when it does kill the Suicune, there is, of course, the Dugtrio factor on the other side, so maybe or maybe not, depending on its health at the time, it gets revenge killed. But I think that Gary had a very real chance to win this game with the CM Bliss. Kind of just got robbed there, and now unless it is a CM Rachi, and frankly, maybe even if it is a CM Rachi, given how boosted the Suicune is, I don't think Gary really has a good way to win this game anymore, and we still don't know the last poke for SOULWIND in the back, and the Rachi, even more egregiously than with Blissey, would have to be really, really healthy or behind a sub when it kills something in order to survive. Otherwise, the Dugtrio revenge kill is very real. So it's looking to me like Game 1 is about to go the way of SOULWInd, but Gary going through the motions, as he should when there is cash money on the line. Speaking of which, you guys can donate if you want there to be more cash money on the line. Please consider doing that. SOULWInd trying to stall him out here. Yeah, I mean, this might not be the most riveting stare down, but I think the inevitability is there. I think the writing is on the wall. I can't imagine the way that Gary gets out of this game, especially with the Dugtrio in the back from this position. Toxic there attempts to put a clock on him, but he misses. Surf could just end it right here. Yep. Troll damage roll, 47% last time, 53% this time. Super duper over. Gary desperately fishing for freezes here. He only has a 1-turn window to get it, 20% shot with Serene Grace, but it does not cooperate, and SOULWInd is going to comfortably take Game 1 without even ever revealing that final poke. It really did all come down to that Suicune on Blissey Calm Mind contest, and unfortunately it got broken very quickly on just the second Suicune attack. The Surf found the crit. Pretty much all over from there. Certainly Gary's prerogative to go through the motions, but not much he or anybody could do once that critical hit occurred. So as a reminder, guys, with the structure of this tournament, round 3 is lower bracket only, as you can see on the fancy editing on the screen that Gold or whoever is going to implement. But if you lose in round 3, you are eliminated, because the only people playing this round are the people that have already lost. All the good players have buys. So one of these guys, one of these Spaniards, gonna knock out their countrymen here, and it's going to be Gary needing 2 games in a row to not be eliminated, whereas SOULWInd is going to have 2 opportunities to take a game off Gary and push him off the edge of the cliff. So here we go with Game 2. Let me go ahead and switch those sides for continuity. Put SOULWInd on the bottom again, and here we go. SOULWInd bottom, Gary top, Metagross on T-Tar, 2 of the most common leads in the tier. Advantage Metagross, Meteor Mashes into a Moltres, which of course is going to resist it. And very early on, just 2 turns in fact, we see that Garay seemingly has brought TSS. Again, unclear for SOULWInd. Meta Bliss could be a lot of things. Could be a TSS, but it could also be a little closer to balance. Going to go for T-Wave there, and then S-Toss respectively. S-Toss again for lack of something better to do, and Ice Beam is the retaliation, which obviously doesn't do a lot either. Less than S-Toss, in fact. Here comes Meta, and Soft Boil, just to be safe. So yeah, we've got more Skarm Bliss action from Garay. That seems to be far and away his preferred archetype and most comfortable go-to in this format. In the large majority of ADV games that I've watched for Garay, tournament games anyway, this seems to be what he wants to play. I don't know if that means that he thinks he can't play something else, or if he just flat out thinks this is the best archetype, play the best team. But definitely his preference in my observation. SOULWInd has only showed the 2 pokes so far, and it's interesting that he goes S-Toss there rather than going for Soft Boil, but he may come to regret that. Pursuit is going to leave that Bliss in bad shape. 14% with a Spike Down and Sand going. That Bliss is effectively dead unless SOULWInd has a Rapid Spinner and can find an opportunity to get rid of that Spike. But even then, it's going to be hard to find the perfect opportunity to get the Blissey in and get a Soft Boiled off. So I think SOULWInd might very well regret going for that S-Toss rather than the Soft Boiled when he had the chance. That being said, mixed meta there, getting nice value. Chip damage on the Skarm with an HP Fire before blowing up on the Swampert. Pretty good for SOULWInd. Now going to go for Para Flinch action with Arrow, but Garay gets lucky here through the Para possibility, through the Flinch possibility, through the imperfect accuracy. Connects with Toxic on Aerodactyl anyway, and that clock very well may end up mattering later in the game. But right now, Skarm really taking a beating, down to just 20%. SOULWInd does not push his luck, tries right now to get the Blissey in, which he is successful. However, the Sand is going to take him out, and T-Tar comes in as the follow-up, previously unrevealed. 30% Rock Slide there. Lefties being gained by one, but not the other. SOULWInd's got the lefties. Good double switch benefiting Garay. Last poke previously unrevealed. Gengar comes in, which obviously has the advantage against Flygon. Now Milotic is feeling the burn. That was also previously unrevealed, but all cards now on the table. Surf there, sure. Doesn't do a whole lot into Bliss. We've got ourselves a 5-4 situation. Garay, who is down a game, being the 5. And Thunderbolt and Ice Beam. This may be another CM Bliss, just as it was in the game before for Garay. It let him down before, but gonna give her another chance. Gonna let her redeem herself, potentially here. Feels like maybe he should have won the game last time with CM Bliss, so what the hell? Down a game. I'm a fan of this Mon. Let's give her another go. Back he goes to Skarm on a recover turn. Pretty good for Garay, getting some lefties in there, and if he's greedy, he can go for Protect and try to get more lefties. But he doesn't want to risk the full Para, so he pulls it back to Bliss, which is the safer play. CM Bliss seems difficult for SOULWInd to switch into. T-Tar can switch in a time or two, but it's not a permanent answer by any means. And obviously the Arrow doesn't like either side of Bolt Beam, and Flygon wants to avoid Ice Beam, so a bit of a tricky poke. And we again see Garay sneaking in the Skarm on what he believes correctly to be a recover turn and getting additional leftovers. Critical here is not a huge deal, but it will prompt a Soft Boiled, so if SOULWInd wants to switch, now would be the time. And indeed, he decides T-Tar into Bliss, which, who can blame him? With Swampert down, a physical T-Tar might be something of an issue, and DD there might really be an issue. All of a sudden, Garay might not love his position. Crit there almost certainly didn't matter. So now Gengar is going to have to handle it, whether it's Will-O-Wisp or Destiny Bond or some kind of shenanigans. And it is an attempt at Will-O-Wisp against a T-Tar that we know has lefties and obviously therefore can't have Lumberry. So very important for SOULWInd to not get burned there. But he did manage with his DD-Tar to equalize the game. So 4 up now. Toxic misses, Thunderbolt does not. And a Para. So a full power or a crit here could result in the death of the Milotic. That was a pretty poor time for a 10% added effect to kick in. And of course Gary goes for T-Bolt again. SOULWIND not comfortable with it, goes to T-Tar. And Rock Slide kills Moltres. So a game that Gary was in the lead of for most of, it has now done a little switcheroo. SOULWInd has overtaken him with a temporary 4-3 lead, but that burned devastatingly bad on the Flygon. That Flygon is almost certainly useless now with that burn. And Skarm again finds an opportunity to sneak in, keeping in mind that it was as low as 14% at one point, but has nursed himself with lefties all the way back into the green almost at 50%. And in fact, with that full power, it will get back into the green. And there's 3 layers of spikes down. That part isn't the biggest deal, because only 2 of the remaining 4 pokes for SOULWInd are in fact vulnerable to the spikes, but it certainly doesn't hurt. I'm really unclear as to who's going to win this game. I think it's going to be pretty close, but the CM Bliss, as the game goes on, seems more and more of a problem for SOULWInd. He refreshes and barely hangs on. Sand gets him down to 2%, and then of course Lefties negates it. Recover happens, but Gary takes the opportunity to CM up. This next Thunderbolt, not something that he switches into easily at all. And gonna let the Milotic bite the dust in exchange for a Toxic to at least put something of a clock on the Blissey. Kind of surprised that the Aerodactyl doesn't come in here, but I can understand the T-Tar play. The thing is, he's going to Dragon Dance again, so I guess he might be planning on trying to dodge a Will-O-Wisp, get a second Dragon Dance off, and then win the game. Goes for Rock Slide. Fair enough. I mean, if Will-O-Wisp had missed, that would obviously be devastating. Giga Drain comes down. The reason that I like the second DD better is because on this turn it would give him an opportunity to go for the flinch out, which would win the game effectively anyway. So maybe a minor sequencing boo-boo there for SOULWInd, but we'll see if it ends up mattering. We've got ourselves a 2-2, and Gary must find a way to win this game, otherwise he's eliminated from Jimvitational. And the fact that that Toxic connected earlier, through the power, through the flinch, through the accuracy, is really coming back now to be relevant, as the Aerodactyl is very much on a clock, and Protect does happen there through para. Aerodactyl down to just 5%. Rock Slide happens, but it's not enough. And yeah, I mean, the Toxic there irrelevant, but Skarmory at 13%, as low as that is, here comes the past biting SOULWInd again. The fact that that Flygon got burnt earlier, it makes that Rock Slide do 7%. This one just 8%. The helpless Skarm is walling it at 10%. I don't know if the Flygon can break through here. It is possible. I mean, if Protects get through for Gary, this Flygon might legit die to its burn before the Skarmory dies, which is wild. Certainly going to be a Protect attempt here, or not. Not clear why not. Alright, well, I guess he thinks it doesn't matter. SOULWInd, 1 turn and 1 turn only, must crit here. Doesn't even go for the EQ, goes for the flinch. Does not get it, and gets blown to smithereens by the Ice Beam. And with that, we go to Game 3, but Gary's got to be barely breathing right now. He's got a big exhale, sigh of relief. That one was pretty scary, and it looked like SOULWInd was starting to take over the game, but a couple of those status effects, man, blast from the past. The Toxic mattered and the Will-O-Wisp mattered. They both really ended up making a difference in this game. So we'll go to Game 3. It's going to be winner takes all. SOULWInd and Gary, only one Spaniard shall remain after this one. And hey, they're already in the right position. How convenient. Here is the third and final game between SOULWInd and Gary. Winner still in the tournament in round 4 in the lower bracket, and loser is out of here. SOULWInd with Meta, and Gary with Tar, same as last game. That's not the same as last game. Registeel. And the Mash does get a raise, which makes a possible Earthquake follow-up very dangerous, but he pulls it back, and good thing he does, because that counter would have easily killed the Metagross in that situation. So good discipline and heads-up scouting for SOULWIND to not just lose his Metagross there. Garay, I believe, is running... This looks a lot like a team that he ran literally last round. He might literally just be recycling a team from the previous round. I believe this is a linear curve team. Yep, there is Milo. I believe it has a Fori and a Gengar as well. I think we are looking at Fori Stall. And if I am correct, then that really, I mean, that should tell you something about Garay. The fact that he is against SOULWIND, universally respected player. Obviously, Garay respects him too. He's well aware of how good SOULWIND is, which is very, very, very good. Obviously, that power matters, by the way. But the point that I'm making is that Garay has chosen to bring Stall 3 times out of 3 into SOULWIND. A lot of the time, when you're against a really good player in a tournament, that pursuit is relevant. Gengar is dead. A lot of the time when you're against a really good player in a tournament, you choose to run really aggressive teams and just get there. Get them with crits, get them with added effects, put the pressure on them. You don't want to play a long game with them. You're going to make more mistakes with them. They're going to outplay you as they grind you out. Garay is not approaching it that way. He is not at all afraid to play a long game and play it straight against SOULWIND, and that Boom is going to take down Celebi as well. That impresses the crap out of me about Garay. It really does. That all 3 games... he's opted to bring Stall into SOULWIND, and he is not afraid to go for the longer game against someone who's this good. That really, to me, speaks to how Garay feels about himself and his confidence in his own ability, which is awesome. And right now, it seems warranted. I mean, clearly Garay ahead right now. That Sing does not help, so SOULWIND catches up a little bit with that, but... pretty clear advantage for Garay. Flat out up him on, and he's got the spike down that SOULWIND has not shown a way to remove yet. And I'm looking like it's kind of similar to Garay's Game 1 team. TSS is good, there's no doubt, but a lot of people fall into this trap just like is happening here, where you're so sturdy and so fat and so I gotta cover every threat, where you kind of sort of quickly run out of ways to win. Annoying freeze there for SOULWIND, who's already behind. He can natural cure it away, but the Blissey obviously would have liked to have gotten a soft boiled off. Here comes Swampert. But yeah, I'm wondering how SOULWIND wins the game. Meta and Gengar are the 2 pokes that are KO'd. They normally can help, and there is the Gengar for Garay, so it is the exact team that I thought that it was. Like I said, this is a linear curve team from a number of years ago, but still a cool team today. Good double switch for SOULWIND to get the Blissey back in. Can certainly get a soft boiled off, pending a crit or another freeze. And Garay doesn't even push his luck. He just goes to the Fori, which is understandable. Almost certainly another spike coming. No, he doubles back to Milo. Fair enough. That's going to put pressure on the Tar and force it out. Blissey comes in again. And the net result is a Surf. And all this is going to do is prompt a soft boiled from SOULWInd. See how Garay wants to deal with that. He goes back to Fori, gets some lefties. Maybe now he spikes up again. If he thinks T-Tar's coming in, he can click HP Bug or Earthquake or something. But I would just spike. And that's what he does. Thunderbolt with an added effect para there after doing 24% damage. Here comes the Tar. And there is layer number 3 of spikes. Unknown if SOULWInd has a spinner in the back, but he sure hasn't played like he does. Fire Blast there. Nope. Milo very good at checking special or mixed threats. Mixed Men's, special Tar. Yeah. There's your super effective attack right there. Just 29% on HP Grass. That is simply not going to cut it. Goes for it again. 28 this time. Surf takes out the T-Tar, and the lead gets bigger for Garay. Not the last poke I was expecting for SOULWInd. Man, multiple mixed threats on this team. That Milo is a bitch for SOULWInd's team. The Metagross, the Swampert, that particular set of T-Tar, and the Charizard really all dislike Milotic. So, seemingly a pretty unfortunate matchup for SOULWInd, and I don't see how anyone could argue that Garay is just flat out ahead by every measure here, and that critical hit makes it even worse. So bad, in fact, that SOULWInd packs it in. But I don't even think it was premature. I think Garay was very, very far ahead in this game. This one never felt that close. It never really felt like SOULWIND was at any point ahead in this Game 3. But this is what I'm talking about with Garay. I mean, SOULWIND is so ridiculously good at Pokemon. Like I said, one of the greatest overall Pokemon players ever. Like top 5, top 3, maybe even top 1, depending on who you ask. SOULWIND is so good. And here's Garay having the balls 3 games out of 3 to bring Stall into him. He's that damn confident in his own ability. And again, warranted, justified, because he picks up the 2-1 win, knocks out his countryman, and the sky is the limit. I'm a Garay fan. Like I said, I invited him straight to CI7 main event last year. I had some comments privately from people that did not agree with that decision. He made a good run then. He looked good. He looked like he belonged. And here he is again with 2 wins in this tournament. So even if he were to be eliminated next round, 2-2, totally solid finish. But honestly, I mean, really, with the way, if he could beat SOULWIND, if he could play this well and this confidently against someone as good as SOULWIND, who can't he beat? The sky really is the limit for Garay. I'd be very afraid to run into him in a future round in the lower bracket. I'm a big Garay fan. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, my name is Callus, youtube.com/Callus narrates in the description. Please subscribe to Revival Tournaments. Hit the like button, support Jim and the crew, and consider donating. PayPal donation link also in the description if you have the means. Thank you for watching, and if they invite me back, I shall see you in the next video.